Hello, everyone. Okay, now we're going to be solving problem A-35 or of our book, Cost Accounting, Hogren's Cost Accounting, 17th edition. This is a problem with variances for variable overhead and fixed overhead, both. Okay, so we're being asked a bunch of questions right here, not precisely what the variance is, but what these numbers are. So for that, we're going to make our charts. Okay, so we're going to start with we're going to start with variable chart. So let's label this variable overhead. And we're going to have an actual column. We're going to have a middle column, which is the flexible input. We're going to have the flexible budget. And let's make this a tiny bit smaller so we can fit static here. We're not going to need, but we're going to bring the standards from the static. So remember, we're going to do output, and we're going to do input required for a unit of output. That will give us the total input, and that will be the rate. And then we need the total cost. So let's start putting the numbers in that we have. Okay, so since this is the variable chart, we're only gonna worry about variable information. So we have the actual results, which is the total cost, 71,808. Then we have the flexible budget, 86,40. And again, this is also the allocated. So we do not need another column. It's not the same thing, but it's built the same way. Okay, we're going to be using the actual output times the standards. So we don't need two columns. We can have both on the same column under the variable overhead chart only. Okay. Then we have the budgeted number of output units. Again, budgeted. Okay, if it's budgeted, we're going to go and it's output. Okay, so it's output and it's budgeted. Okay, so we're going to put it under the static. And then we have the planned allocation rate. So this is the input required to make a unit of output. We need 2 machine hours to make 1 unit. Okay, so in this plan, so again, that's also a budgeted number. Okay. Then what else do we have? We have the actual number of the input, which is the machine hours. Machine hours is your driver. This is your input. So input actual 1,632. Then the static budget variable overhead cost, we go to the static right here. This is 76,860. Okay, so we have all the numbers we need for the variable chart. Let's see if we can solve the first. Okay, it says budgeted number of machine hours planned. Okay, budgeted number of machine hours planned right here. Okay, so I'm going to box it in. The way we know this is what the question is asking for. This is our first question. What is the number of machine hours that were planned originally? So what do? Output times input per output equals input. So all we gotta do is take the output times the input per output. Here we go. So that's the answer for number 1. Number 2, budgeted fixed. Oh, fixed. So we're gonna leave number 2. Okay, let's move on. Number 3. It's fixed. We need the fixed chart. We're doing the variable. Okay. So now budgeted variable manufacturing overhead cost. Okay, again, budgeted variable machine cost per machine hour right here. This is your rate. Okay. Rate per unit of input, not per unit of output. Okay, so what is the rate per hour? Okay, again, cost over driver, and this is algebra. Line number 1 times line number 2 equals line number 3. Line number 3 times line number 4 equals line number 5. So if we do line number 5 over 3, we get 4, and that is number 3. So this box is in. Okay, we also need this. So what is the rate? Cost over driver, 42. Okay, 42. All right, let's see what else we can find. So we have 1 and 3 down. budgeted number of machine hours allowed. So remember, every time you see the word allowed, connect the word with flexible, okay? And what do we need? The input allowed. So right here, okay? That's our next variable that we need to solve. So let's box this in. How do we get that? Well, we can move the 2 into the flexible. So let's start color coding, okay? And then we're also going to move the 42. By the way, the 42 can move all the way to M, okay, which is a flexible input. It's flexible, we're flexing the output, meaning that we're using the actual output. But then we're using all the standards, the 2, and we're using the 42. Okay, so if we want to solve for this number right here, again, this divided by this will give us 10. Okay, so let's do it. 80,640 divided by 42. That is your number 4. Now, number 5 is asking, what is the actual number of output units? Okay, here we go. Because remember, this number comes from the actual. That's why we're flexing the budget, because we're using actual numbers. So we can solve the flexible, figure it out. Okay, so let's put a box right here. It's another variable we're solving for. So this number will be 1920 divided by 2. Working this backwards. Oops. Yeah, I got that on the wrong cell. So let's do it again. Oh, no, actually, I had it in the right cell. Okay. Let's do it again. 1920 divided by 2. There we go. 960. We can also move the 960 here, even though I don't think we'll need it, but we might. Okay, so we have 1, 3, 4, and 5. Now, let's solve for 1, 2, 3, 1. Am I missing a box somewhere? Oh, do we have to solve for this? Oh, that's given. So machine hours plan, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 variables so far. So now we're going to try to solve for actual number of machine hours used per output unit. So the input per output on the actual column. So right here, okay, input per output of the actual column. So let's box this in. Okay. Let's figure it out. Input per output, a 1.7, right? Okay, so with the variable chart, we were able to solve 5 out of the 6 variables. Now we need to build that fixed chart. Okay, fixed chart, fixed overhead. It's a little different. Okay, we're going to have an actual number. We're not going to have a middle. Okay, this is a flexible input. Flex input. We're not going to have that middle column. Okay, this is flex output. Because we're not going to measure efficiency, we're going to measure productivity. So we're going to have the flexible budget right here. Okay, and then the allocated, which will behave the same way it always has. Okay, and then the static. The static and the flex, remember, is the same in this case. We cannot flex fixed costs because it doesn't matter how many units you're making. Budget is a budget. Okay. All right. Let's put the numbers in. Remember, if it's the same problem, you get to use the same numbers in the first 3. Okay. So we're going to copy and paste. Okay. That was formula. So let's copy and paste the numbers. Here we go. Okay. So we don't need the boxes. Well, actually, we do because we still needed to answer, and we could solve whether using the fixed or the variable chart. We can solve either way. Okay. Okay. So what do we want now? We want the rate. We want this rate right here. We're missing number 2. Budgeted fixed manufacturing overhead cost per hour. And I don't want this. Okay. So what else do we know? Okay, we're given fixed these numbers in. Copy and paste. So the total actual cost was 360, 672. And the flexible is 351, 360. And the allocated is 368, 640. And the static the same as the flexible. Okay, so 351, 360. So there's two ways that we can solve this. We can either do this over this or this over this. We should get the same answer. Okay, so let's try it over here. Cost over driver, 192. It's right here. Cost over driver. See, same rate. Because this one travels, okay, all the way to flex. So it should be the same. Right? So this box is in, so that will be our answer. Okay. All right. This is it, guys.